You ever see something so absurd, so comically petty, that you don't know whether to laugh or just stare in disbelief? That was me, standing at the edge of the lake with a power drill in one hand and a 6-foot fence panel in the other, putting the final piece into a wall that now sliced the community's shoreline in half like a legal chainsaw. Behind me stood a crowd of stunned neighbors. Across from me, Beverly Lane, cousin to Linda Patterson, our infamous, tyrannical HOA president. Beverly stood frozen, barefoot, coffee mug dangling from her hand like her nervous system had shut down. Her lavish lakefront oasis, complete with loungers, tiki torches, and a half-built jet ski ramp, was now blocked off by raw timber. The fence was more than just wooden screws. It was a boundary, a verdict, a middle finger carved from law and lumber. But this story didn't begin with the fence. It began 5 years earlier, when I moved to Meadow Lake Hills, bought my dream home, and believed I'd found peace. When I bought my home, the highlight wasn't just the open kitchen or vaulted ceilings. It was the deeded access to the lake, a stretch of shoreline shared only by 2 lots, mine and my neighbor's. That dock, that beach, it became my family's sanctuary. My daughter learned to swim there. We held barbecues, skipped stones, fished at sunset. The community was peaceful, friendly, and for the most part, free from drama. Back then, the HOA barely registered in our lives. The board was made up of retirees who just wanted to keep things tidy. They weren't enforcers. They were facilitators. If you mowed your lawn and didn't paint your house neon green, you were golden. Then Linda moved in. Within 3 months, she ran for HOA president to help restore order. Within 6, she had transformed into a self-declared queen of compliance. No wind chimes, auditory pollution. No chalk drawings, visual disruption. She issued warnings for grass being half an inch too high. She banned garden gnomes. She even required written approval for flowers not listed on her approved floral list. But things really escalated when Beverly showed up. Linda introduced Beverly at an HOA meeting as her cousin, staying temporarily. Temporary, apparently, meant long enough to build a beachfront resort. It started with a folding chair and a speaker. Then came luxury loungers. Then torches. Then, unbelievably, construction of a jet ski ramp, complete with wooden beams laid across the shoreline. Beverly claimed she'd been granted exclusive access to her half of the lakefront by Linda. She even waved a document at me, an HOA easement reassignment. When I read it, I nearly laughed. It was typed in Comic Sans and signed by any legal body and referenced a board vote that supposedly happened at a meeting where 2 board members were out of town. I tried to reason with her. Beverly, this space is deeded. It's shared. She smiled like I was a confused child. Linda says I can use it full time since you're only here weekends. Feel free to file a complaint. A few days later, I found a rope barrier staked across the beach. Laminated signs read, "Private area, do not enter." I didn't react until the morning my daughter went down to the water and Beverly physically blocked her. That was it. The final straw. I'm a contracts lawyer by trade. The next week, I buried myself in paperwork. My home deed clearly outlined lakefront access, split between my lot and the one next door. The HOA charter? It explicitly stated that no board ruling could override deeded property rights. County records? Beverly wasn't even a resident, just a guest with zero legal claim. Linda's easement reassignment was legally meaningless, an insult to real governance. So I drafted a formal notice of violation, complete with statutory citations and HOA bylaw references. I gave Beverly and Linda 72 hours to remove everything from my half of the lakefront or face legal action. They laughed, then came to my house with a man in a wrinkled suit who claimed to be their lawyer. He couldn't recite a single bar number. Beverly offered to split usage days. You take weekends, I'll take weekdays. Linda offered to waive my HOA fees for a year if I just let it go. I told them I wasn't negotiating with people who trespass and lie. And when the 72 hours passed, I launched phase 2. I hired a surveyor who confirmed the boundary line and confirmed that Beverly's setup was heavily encroaching on my deeded space. Then I bought enough 6-foot fencing to divide the beach clean in half. By the time the panels were halfway up, neighbors had gathered. Phones came out. Whispers turned into commentary. Beverly watched in horror as her lakefront throne room turned into a construction zone. Linda arrived in a bathrobe, shouting about vandalism and civil harassment. She called the police. They reviewed the paperwork and left. She called city inspectors. They found no violations. By sundown, the fence stood clean, sturdy, and legal. Beverly's empire had crumbled. Her loungers were stranded. Her ramp was now useless. Her speakers split in two by a wall she couldn't cross. But I wasn't done yet. After the fence went up, everything changed. Beverly stopped speaking to anyone. Her speakers went silent. Her jet ski ramp stood half-finished, a wooden monument to overreach and entitlement. Linda, meanwhile, went into damage control. She sent out a community email with the subject line, "Urgent neighborhood violation, fence erected without consent." She claimed I had attacked the peaceful spirit of Meadow Lake Hills, that I'd acted unilaterally, that I was destabilizing the neighborhood. She called an emergency HOA meeting, passing flyers out door to door in a panic. But instead of sympathy, she stirred up something else entirely: curiosity. People had been watching. Whispers were spreading. Others had their own stories. Tom, a retired judge 2 doors down, had once been fined $100 for excessive leaf accumulation. Sarah Chin's flower garden had been bulldozed under Linda's mysterious, uniform landscaping initiative. One homeowner got written up for having a sunflower wreath. Another, for hanging string lights after 9 p.m. And now, suddenly, Linda's cousin was granted a fake, exclusive shoreline easement. It didn't take long for the HOA meeting to turn. Linda stood at the front of the room, flanked by her clipboard and her last few loyalists. She opened with her usual syrupy tone. "We are here today because one of our homeowners chose to construct a 6-foot fence without the approval of the HOA board. This aggressive act has..." "Excuse me," Tom cut in, rising slowly from his seat. "Before you continue, I'd like to share some findings." He held up a folder. "I've reviewed the HOA charter. Section 3.1 explicitly states that deeded property rights supersede any board decision. Mr. Anders here," he pointed to me, "acted fully within his legal rights." Linda tried to interrupt, but he raised his hand. "And for the record," he added, "this so-called easement reassignment, it was never entered into public records, nor was it voted on, nor did it appear in any official minutes. It was fabricated." The room shifted. Murmurs became outrage. Sarah Chun stood next. "I have photos of my garden before and after your landscapers bulldozed it. No one approved that project. You told me the board decided, but I've since learned the board never even met that month." Another neighbor held up a letter. "Here's a fine I received for putting a bench in my front yard. But your cousin gets to build a cabana on shared lakefront." And then, like a death knell, Beverly's husband walked in. He stood at the back, arms crossed. Quiet. Then he said, "I told Beverly this would turn into a mess. She didn't listen. I'm just here to say, we're moving out. This whole thing, it's not worth the trouble. And Linda, you dragged us into it. You could have heard a pin drop." Linda's eyes darted, her fingers gripping the lectern like it might float her out of the room. Someone raised their hand. "I move for a vote of no confidence," they said. "Seconded," said another. And just like that, the room raised hands. Unanimous. Linda was removed as HOA president on the spot. With Linda ousted, the board appointed a temporary president, Tom, and began investigating. What they found was worse than expected. Linda had rerouted HOA discretionary funds to pay for Beverly's beach upgrades. She had hired her brother-in-law as the official landscape inspector, who charged inflated rates and reported only to her. The HOA budget included line items like beach beautification and community security upgrade, which turned out to be code for buying tiki torches and Bluetooth speakers. Fines collected for minor infractions weren't accounted for. Several $1,000s were simply missing. They contacted the HOA's attorney, who had been kept in the dark for months. His response? We're liable unless we act. She violated fiduciary duty, committed fraud, and misused community funds. The board voted, again, unanimously, to pursue legal action. 3 months later, Linda stood in court. She wore a beige suit and clutched a folder like it might protect her. But the evidence was overwhelming. The judge heard testimony from 3 board members, a county recorder's office rep, and me. I presented my deeded Lakefront documentation, the surveyor's report, the falsified easement letter, and the dozens of emails Linda sent trying to intimidate me. Linda's defense? She claimed she was just trying to manage seasonal lakefront access to avoid congestion. The judge didn't buy it. His ruling was swift. You are guilty of misrepresentation, embezzlement of community funds, abuse of office, and falsification of HOA documents. Sentence: 2 years probation, 300 hours of community service, restitution of $47,000 to the HOA, a permanent ban from holding any HOA leadership position. As the gavel fell, Linda broke down in tears. No one applauded. No one comforted her. She'd ruled like a queen. Now she stood alone. The following weekend, the beach was quiet again. No speakers, no barriers, no laminated signs. My daughter splashed in the water, free again. Neighbors came down with folding chairs. Tom brought lemonade. Sarah brought cookies. And I sat by the lake with a cup of coffee, watching the sun glint off the water and off the fence that still stood tall and proud. It wasn't just lumber. It was law. It was respect. It was the line between tyranny and peace. And if you ever ask me what it feels like to fight an HOA president, hold your ground, and win, I'll say this. It feels like quiet mornings, clean shorelines, and the knowledge that sometimes fences do make good neighbors. If watching an HOA dictatorship crumble under the weight of its own lies gave you life, hit that like button and subscribe for more outrageous neighborhood justice stories. Trust me, the next one might be even crazier.